Okay? Why is there this, why has all these colours and prints gone away from clothing? So clearly it is part of a bigger story in terms of the way clothing has developed in societies around us that we're interested in. And actually, one of the points I was making in that paper was, instead of fashion theory starting with the catwalk and haute couture, really it should start from what we see when we're doing ethnographic work. And a lot of the work that I'm talking about now was done by Sophie Woodward, who originally was doing this as a PhD student with me. And what she wanted to know was, how and why do women decide what to wear in the morning, okay? Like, not what you see on the street, but like in the morning when they get up. I don't know how she did the field work, I didn't ask, all right? But she's looking at, the point she's making is that what you see on the street is not really what's going on. That you have to be there when people wake up, and typically when they wake up, they're opening the wardrobe, there's that classic statement, my God, I have nothing to wear, 100 things there. And then often they are putting on actually more interesting things, with a bit of colour maybe, or a little bit more adventurous. They put them on, they look in the mirror, and they take them off again. Okay? Maybe even twice. And then, if they are still anxious and still concerned about how they may look out there, they'll come to jeans. So what she found was that blue jeans were what you might call default clothing. Okay? It's what you end up with if nothing else will kind of work. It's there in the wardrobe, it's the safety area, okay, of the wardrobe. You can always, at least you can wear jeans. So why is fashion theory not starting with these issues of anxiety and the experience of actually wearing things? Why is it only about kind of designers and catwalks? Is one of the things that I would be concerned about here. Now, she finds all that out, and that's a very curious thing about jeans. But there is one more element, as we say, I want to throw into the pot, into the recipe, right? Because there's another strange thing about jeans, right? If you go into a shop to buy clothing, and you see something on the rail, and it's torn, it's worn, it's stained, it's faded, it's frayed, you complain to the person selling you the clothing. Unless it's blue jeans. In blue jeans, that may actually be what you are looking for when you go shopping. Alright? And the term we have for that is distressing. With any other clothing, you would be distressed if this happened. But with this, it's okay. That's often the jeans that people want to have. One. Well, in this case, I can sort of remember a little bit about the story that ended up with jeans looking that way. Because maybe you don't want to have the image in your heads, but there was a time when it would have been, even for me, very long hair, beads, purple flared trousers, etc., etc. And we, in those days, wore jeans. And really the important thing was about getting stoned, right? Now, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the jeans. Because when we wore jeans, we wore them naturally, as it were, to death. Those were the days, if your mother or girlfriend burnt them, you had to get another one. Otherwise, you just continued wearing these jeans. But then, after the natural creation of this relationship to jeans, commerce started copying it. And the getting stoned is actually the very first treatment of jeans was what's called stonewashing. Washing them with stones to give them that used feel, that kind, and fading, right, through the stones. So the jeans were getting stoned, and the reason the jeans were getting stoned was because when we wore them, we found that these jeans, over a long period of time, did something. The reason we wanted it, they became us in a particular way. They softened in the cotton. They wore to the very way that we kind of walked or acted in the world. And they became very intimate, very personal. And interestingly, I think that it's really only jeans that had this capacity. They transformed materially to the individual person wearing them to become in this kind of intimate association with them. And I don't think anything else did. I mean, you might think that underwear is more intimate, but I don't think that we wear underwear until it kind of transforms and fades away a bit to become closer to our body, or at least I don't. All right? Jeans, we do. So this is getting to be a story, right? You have all these things going on. And at that point, Sophie and I wrote a paper which we called a manifesto for the study of genes. And what we were saying is, you know, maybe we can now see the big picture here a bit. Because let's take 3 of these stories, okay? Observation number 1, it's global. It's the most global thing out there. Everywhere we go, everybody's wearing blue jeans. Observation number 2, it's this default position, okay? That if you're anxious and you can't wear anything else, you're going for blue jeans. Observation number 3, unlike any other article, jeans are subject to this distressing, to this kind of fading into the body. I would say, well, when you have just one odd thing, it's difficult. When you have several odd things, maybe you can make a jigsaw, put them together in an interesting way. And one of the things we were arguing at that point was maybe this fits together. Because if people want today to feel that they are citizens of the world, right? Nobody wants to be left out of the globe, right? Everybody wants to feel they have an association with the world as the world. And so when an item takes on the significance of being global, then maybe that itself is a reason why people in different parts of the world would wish to be associated with it. Certainly when I'm working in Trinidad, I would say there's good evidence for that. But the problem is, if you want to be a citizen with identification at the level of the world, that is a hugely abstract relationship. And one of the feelings that we have always had, and it's there in the literature for many years, is that you can be lost in that abstraction. You can lose the sense of yourself, of your personhood, your personality, your individuality in that. So if the genes, at the same time, are also the object that is most personal, that is most intimate, that is most related to the individuality and personality of that, and you can use the same object then to be both the most global and the most individual at the same time. That's material culture, right? It's doing something. It's helping to resolve a major contradiction of whatever you want to call it, alienation, etc., in the modern world. Perhaps. Perhaps. At least it's something that brings together some of these weird things that we're finding about genes. But that can then be taken in 2 directions. On the one hand, the direction is to relate this macro idea to the little local stories. So one of the things we did was we formed something called the Global Denim Project. And the idea of that was to bring together people. The idea was like, you know, in academia, we have a tendency to say, oh, what are you going to study for your project? I want to study this. No, you can't study that. Somebody else is studying it, right? Find something else to study. It's like a territorial idea about academia. So we thought, why not reverse this? We said, okay, we're going to study denim for the next 5 years. Why doesn't everybody come and study denim for the next 5 years? At least it's a bit more social. We can talk to each other, you know, instead of everybody out there in isolated units. And we set up this kind of global denim project. We put it on the net, and we asked people if they were interested. Some people were studying denim. And anyway, others just came in because they thought it was interesting to work in that way in relation to each other. And the nice thing about it is they produced many different projects that were complementary to each other. The local representation of this would be Roberta's work, and this is the contents of the book Global Denim, and she worked specifically with her students in Milan, looking at relationships between denim and sexuality, but then there were other things like how does denim relate to recycling in the US, because it's got this kind of iconographic kind of sense of it. boyfriend jeans in the UK and gender relations, the problem of people selling in markets in Brazil, and there was another one on export processing zones in Egypt. So it worked insofar as you could see the complementarity, some historical papers. And it was like, you know, you want the elephant, you have to see it from a lot of different kind of angles to know what the elephant is. So one thing was looking at this kind of multiple perspective on jeans. But the other was, and this is actually one of the projects on fake denim, the other was to do a deeper study. And so Sophie Woodward and myself committed to doing an ethnography in London itself, okay? A sort of deeper study based on an ethnography of 3 streets in North London. And what I'm going to end with is really the discussion of the results of that, which came out in a book called Blue Jeans with the University of California Press about 2 months ago. So here we're working with people on the streets and we're trying to understand, again, what they say about it and what they do in relation to jeans. And the first thing that we worked on is, as well as function, one of the most common reasons people gave for wearing denim is the idea that it's comfortable. People would talk a lot about comfort. And one of the chapters in this book is looking at the semantics of the term comfort. Because comfort turned out to be a very good example of what in social sciences one calls naturalization. That is to say, when people are talking about comfort, they can start by saying, it's comfortable, it's soft cotton, you know, it feels good on my leg. Okay? A physical relation of comfort. But actually, probably more often, people are saying, well, you know, I'm going to a pub this evening, I don't really know the people who are going to be there, I want to feel comfortable. Right? Comfort there has got nothing to do